Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A. And this is actually going to be the last one for a couple of weeks. So if you've got any questions that you've been sitting on for a while, now is probably the time to get them out. Yeah, so what has been occurring in the land of Joyrider TV? Yeah, quite a lot of developments happening. This week, in the Joyrider Academy classroom series, we're on to module number 6. So, yeah, 6 modules already. And I calculated how much actual video is in these modules to date. And it is something like 360 minutes of video lessons in this environment with the in the classroom with the whiteboard. Loads of really good information in there, and there'll be a new module up every week up until the end of March. So plenty to keep you going over the winter months, and so that if you are in the Northern Hemisphere like myself, when it is time for you to get back on the water, you could have digested all of this information and been like Neo in the Matrix, who would unplug and go, I know catamaran sailing. Yeah, that kind of thing. So more from there. Also, very exciting, in conjunction with Greg and Levi, some Texans who've been feeding me with really, really good video footage of all different types of boats. I've started putting together a new series of short videos, and this will be basically like information on different types of catamaran. So yeah, there'll be one of those coming every week on the YouTube channel, which is where we are. So there we go. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the size of it where we are. The all new Joyrider TV app, of course, is coming soon, with 2026 approaching very fast. The speed stick almost finished for 25. Yeah, so I think there are 4 boats, sorry, who are in line for getting the prize, which is I sailed faster than Joe from Joyrider TV in 26 on a non-foiling boat. But it'll be a briefer version. So prizes for getting faster speeds there. Sorry if you're in the Northern Hemisphere and your season is well and truly over. But if you happen to be in the Southern Hemisphere and you're just getting into it, then yeah, there's still a week to go to get out there and put in some good speeds on the 25 speed stick. Once we hit 2026, we won't be accepting any speeds from previous years. You can't go on the speed stick with like, this was the fastest I've ever been in my life. That's not how it works. It's got to be from that year. There we go. All right, just going to check in with the, what would we call them? The early adopters in the live chat. We've got channel member Jens on board. Hello, Jens. Nice to have you with us. We've got channel member Ryan on board in Maui. Yeah, who knows? Could 2026 be the year that I come to the Hawaiian Islands and we see if we can track down Bruce Brown, who filmed the Endless Summer videos, and do the remake of Sharing the Wind. This is definitely something that I have to do. And I think that is going to be amazing. And also, hello to Geo Bro. Nice to have you with us. Very exciting times. Okay, and hello to Hussein, straight in with the super sticker or super chat. And there, and there we are. And hello to Trisha in with the super sticker as well. The super stickers, great way of keeping the Q&A ad free, because it means I don't need to switch the advertisements on, which is nice. Nobody likes having to come away from what they're doing to hit the skip out ad button after waiting to have something advertised that you didn't want. But here I am advertising the fact that there's no advertising. All right. Thank you very much, Trisha and Hussein, for getting the ball rolling. Okay. So let's jump in with the first hot topic. This wasn't even a preloaded question. I thought this is a hot topic. It kind of came about from one of the classroom sessions that I've done. And I thought this is some really good stuff. But it was on the topic of your main sheet cleating angle. As here's one I've got ready. I think I haven't got another one handy, have I? No. So here is our main sheet blocks. Oh, and thank you very much to Ryan as well for the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad free. Very good. Oh, and while we're here, hello to Stephen at Grapham. You're probably not at Grapham Water right now, but Stephen Sales at Grapham Water, which happens to be the last place that I worked in the UK before I relocated to Greece. All right. Cleating angle. Yes. So here is our pretty standard main sheet block that we would have at the bottom. And as you may or may not be aware, we do have some control over the angle of the cleat. If the cleat is really low like this, then it's going to be really easy to cleat the main sheet, but getting it out, in fact, that was pretty easy, but getting it out might be more of a struggle, which if it's windy, you might feel, oh, I'm not so happy with that, because, or even if it's gusty, or if you're just not used to it, you might just think, wow, I can't uncleat the main sheet. Now I'm not quite as inclined to power the boat up as much because I'm not completely sure that I'd be able to sheet out if the need arose. So what we can do on this style of blocks is, sorry, we're on a different camera today, which is a bit higher up. Yeah, so on this style, there's just a screw in the middle. You loosen that screw off and you'd think it would be really easy, but actually adjusting this style of blocks, these are the newer Harkins, which would be from the last 15 years probably. You have to take off this plastic end piece, move the cleat, put the plastic end piece both sides back on, locating in some little holes which are in here, and then screw it back in to adjust your cleating angle. Okay, the opposite of it being too low, of course, is if it's too high, then it can be really difficult or even impossible to cleat. I would say what you are looking for with your cleating angle is you can cleat it, but where it just takes a conscious angle change with your arm, not much of one, but just so that when you sheet in, it will automatically go in if you pull your arm up a little bit, but if you pull your arm down a little bit, it won't automatically cleat. Okay, so this is all good and well, that we can adjust our cleating angle, and you'd think that would be the end of it. Now, there are two other factors which affect your cleating angle. What? How can this be? All right, so the first one, let's see how we're going to do this. All right. Here is our boat. Where are we? All right, just getting started. That's where we are. If we're on the trapeze, this is the main sheet. Coming to here. So if we're on the trapeze and we're reasonably high up on the trapeze, that means that our cleating angle is going to want to be a bit higher up. Yeah, are we all with me so far? So if you're helming on the trapeze, your cleat, and you're quite high up on the trapeze because that's where you like to be, your cleating angle needs to be a little bit higher, because if it's in this fairly low position, it's going to cleat really easily, but uncleating might become a bit of an issue. So a bit higher. By the way, kind of standard for me is if you see this block, the way it lines up. So the cleat is kind of pretty much square coming out of the block. So it's not up at all, it's not down at all, just really square with the block. Yeah, so if you're trapezing high, you need a higher up cleating angle, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult to uncleat. If you are trapezing low, I think we know where this is going. So if we're down here, which means the main sheet is coming in really flat like that. If you ever want to be able to cleat it, you will have to have the cleat lower down. All right, so that was factor number one. Factor number two, and this is the really good one, which you wouldn't think this might be something that just wouldn't occur to you. But if we've got two boats here, if we alter the mast rake, so on a boat like a Tornado that we have here, if this is our boom, actually, let's be a bit more refined here. If this is our boom on the Tornado, and we're going to exaggerate this a little bit, by the way, because so there's our main sheet blocks, there's the cleat. So if we change the mast rake on the boat, and we know that the boom is going to stay perpendicular to the mast, because that angle is not going to change. I'll put a mark where that top block is. So if we bring this back, so the boom is now here, what does that do? This is quite extreme, like I said, just to highlight the point. But what that does to the position where the top block is it brings it much further back, which means the bottom block, the way that is, let's get this again. All right, so normal is like this, but if we bring the top block further back, see what happens to the cleating angle. It comes up. So if you change the mast rake, you are going to actually be changing your cleating angle. So it's going to come much higher as we bring the mast further back. But on a boat like a Tornado or an F-18 or any boat, which pretty much any boat that has its mast rake regulated by the forestay, and you generally wouldn't change it very often. However, on a Hobie 16, in light winds, we might sail with the mast more upright because we've got the rig tension on tight. And then as the wind gets stronger, to really let the boat go, to let it really fly when it's windy, we want to rake the mast back, not rake the mast. Well, we are raking the mast back, but what we're actually doing is we're releasing a bit of rig tension, which allows the mast to come back, which has this same effect, which is why you might feel in lighter wind, when you've got your rig tension pulled on, the cleating angle is much lower than in stronger wind when you have released your rig tension a bit. There we go. I thought that was pretty fascinating, actually. And, you know, we could leave this here. That is enough for anybody to take on board this close to Christmas. But no, we have got more. But before we go in with more, we've got more in the live chat. So Hussein, channel member Hussein, Hussein's been really taking advantage of the classroom sessions, and well, it's not surprising because it was Hussein's idea to do it in the first place. And I think it's a great idea to get this sort of delivery, but in a very organized, modular, so you can follow it easily kind of route. So Hussein says the trapeze module, that's the one that came out this week, is really interesting, very comprehensive and to the point. Great effort. Thank you very much. Yeah. I wasn't sure when I started with doing a classroom trapezing module how much I would actually be able to go into. I was thinking throughout the whole thing, this would be a lot easier to explain if we actually had a boat and could do some physical demonstrations. But actually, there is a lot of theory that goes into it. So it was a really good opportunity to attack it from a different angle. And then, of course, I've linked some actual on water videos to the modules so that then you could see what it looks like. There we go. All right. GeoBro says, are you going to the Nacra 15 and 20 nationals? Yeah, it wasn't a plan, actually. Yeah, unlikely at this time. But if I get an invitation to the Nacra 20 nationals, probably not the 15s. I don't think I'd stand a chance because the young people who sail the Nacra 15s, I think they've just concluded their youth world championship. They are absolutely deadly. And also, if you are not light enough on a boat like a Nacra 15, then you really should just leave the race course, because there are certain boats which are very weight responsive when racing, and the Nacra 15 is one of them. And it's not surprising because it has been designed as a youth class, whereas the Nacra 20, oh yes, the Nacra 20 was specifically designed with the slightly heavier sailor in mind. If you would like to know, I'm currently coming in just under 90 kilograms, which I think is probably something like, in fact, 90 kg. It's just under 200 pounds. Yeah, so on a Nacra 20, I think that would be excellent. But I haven't heard anything about a nationals that's going on. But if there is, yes, please, I'm in. All right, Stephen says this year in Vasiliki, the Hobie 14 cleat was super high. Ooh. The last person was either standing up or maybe using the friction of the metal link on the top of the cleat. Yeah, for actual friction. Yeah, it is painful when you, like, especially at a place where it's not your boat. It's like at Wildwind, there's a fleet of over 30 catamarans, and sometimes people don't like how the sort of standard setup is, so things get changed, like cleating angles, which means the next person who gets on the boat then goes, oh, can't cleat that. This bit of a workout for the arm. I think, you know, when it's windy, it is good to have the ability to cleat, but it's good that it doesn't cleat automatically. That is where I stand on the cleating. Should it or should it not? And like when I'm sailing on a reaching course, I rarely actually cleat the main sheet apart from to get another handful. That just makes it a little bit easier. So on the way I have my boat set up, every time I sheet in, it cleats, but then I flick it out immediately. So sheet in, cleat, flick it out. That is what I'm into. All right, Jochen is on board. Hi, Jochen, channel member, Jochen. Nice to have you with us. All right, Ryan in Maui says, what actually happens when the click ratchet stops working? I have a plastic getaway block that does not ratchet anymore. I've thought about taking it apart, but have not yet. Yeah, sometimes the danger with, I kind of wish I hadn't put, in fact, good, take the main sheet off. It's not going to take as long as you think. If anybody happens to have seen any of the videos I've been putting on Instagram and Facebook of the amazing main sheet that threads itself, I'm gonna tell you how I've done it. It's really obvious, actually. I just pull the rope out, bit tidier than this, and then basically reverse the video, and there it is. Looks like magic. I think it is really satisfying to watch. All right, so the danger with a ball bearing block like this, if you take it apart completely, the danger is the ball bearings might escape. And once the ball bearings have escaped, like on the Harkins, the actual block is like machined together. So it's not actually designed that the user can take it apart. You'd actually have to drill these out and then replace them with a bolt afterwards. But if you drilled it out, whoopah, to separate the blocks to get at the ratchet in the middle, the balls would definitely fall out, and it would be a heck of a job to put it back together. But if otherwise it's not working for you, then it's got to be worth a try, hasn't it? Yeah. So and on these ones, this was meant to be, when Harken changed to these as the standard, they were meant to be like, this is going to be so much better than the old style. But it's a pressure ratchet, which means when this middle block, which has got the what you call it, the kind of grippy bit on that block, when that is pulled upwards, the ratchet engages. So at the moment it just spins freely, but when that's pulled upwards, the ratchet engages, which means it grips the rope, makes it much easier. You definitely want to have a ratchet on your team. But for me and a lot of people, I prefer just having the switch on the side so you could switch it on or off, because realistically, you either want it on or off. Like if it's windy, you want it on. If it's really light wind, better that it's off so that the main sheet runs out more freely. Yeah. Good luck with that, Ryan. Fun times when you take that block apart. Maybe have a tray underneath your working area to catch all of the ball bearings when they fall out. Yes. All right. We got Hans on board in Germany. Hi, Hans. Good to have you with us. All right. So, GeoBro, cool. The sailing club I sail at is supposedly the venue. Oh, do put in which club that is, GeoBro. Very interested to know. All right. Hans is wishing everybody Merry Christmas from cold Germany. Thanks, Hans. All right. And we've got channel member SGP Asian or SG Pasian on board. Hello. Any experience with daggerboard rake setup on the F-18s? Yes. Now, the first time I actually encountered this with the dagger. All right, let's just what I have to keep in mind is not everybody is going to understand what we're on about. So just gonna draw a quick picture and then we'll get to the meat of it. So on how are we going to do this? All right, give us a sec. Easy. All right. Okay, so looking down onto the boat, and then from the side view, if this is our F18 hull, we have the dagger board which comes through the hull, and the purpose of the dagger board is to provide lift, stop the boat from slipping sideways, gives us better upwind performance and more lift on all points of sail, which really gets the boat flying. It also, having a dagger board under the boat like that also is going to promote the hull flying, because as the boat is getting pushed sideways, that sideways force is pushing against the dagger board, which is helping the hull to lift earlier. So you can use your dagger boards as fine tuning for when do you want your hull to lift. Is your hull lifting too easily? If it is, if it's windy and your hull's coming up really early and you're having to depower a lot and doesn't feel like your boat's going very fast, then lift the dagger board a little bit. The hull won't lift as much and everything will become much more efficient. All right, so on the Nacra Evolution, I'm not sure which other boats have this kind of system, but the older F18s, like even the C2, which is not one of the oldest, but it's like a mid-range in age terms, F18, didn't have adjustable dagger board position. That would just be a set position where they designed it. They said that's where it goes, that's where you want it. Now in the Nacra Evolution, and I'm sure other similar boats, the dagger board slot has actually been replaced by what they're calling a bearing, which is basically like what do you have, like a plastic piece which is the shape of the dagger board. This slides forwards and backwards in a kind of track, and then you'll have some way of controlling how to lock it in one position. So the bottom part is locked, that is the set place, whereas the top, this is the top, you can move it forwards and backwards. So if you move the top forwards, you get more rake on the dagger board. So now, to be honest, I absolutely can't remember what the numbers were, because at the Nacra event at Lake Como this year, it was my first time you're actually having adjustable dagger boards. And I asked several people, where should we put the dagger boards? Where do you put the dagger boards? We found some good teams who had a similar weight to our team. So crew weight comes into it. And they said, this is where we're putting our dagger board position. And what we have to do with this dagger board rake is we have to kind of match it to the mast rake as well, because like we're doing all of the time on all of the boats that we're talking about, is which we're trying all right, hold on, just creating a picture here. What we're trying to do is have it so that the center of effort of our rig is just behind, or just in the last third, lined up. So center of effort of the rig here, because we've got the jib as well. And we want that kind of just lined up with the back part of the dagger board, because what that means is, what am I doing? All right, if the center of effort of the, if that's where the dagger board is, and the dagger board is what we're calling the center of lateral resistance, then, and the center of effort is just slightly behind, what that means is we are applying pressure, more pressure behind that center of lateral resistance, the pivot point, which is going to make the boat just want to head up very slightly. So on a boat like an F-18, which is very precise these days, it's going to be just a very slight amount that the center of effort is back when compared to the center of lateral resistance. Now, easiest way to do this on a boat like an Nacras Evolution, they've got a really good rigging instructions and tuning guide, is just follow the numbers in the tuning guide, and everything goes with your crew weight. So what your combined weight is on the boat, do that, and then your boat is going to be super quick. All right. I hope that helps. Yeah, it'd be nice if I had the numbers, but I haven't. So can't go making numbers up. That's important. All right. So where are we? All right. Geo bro. All right. The club is the Isle of Sheppey. Okay, yeah, I know the Isle of Sheppey. That's on the mouth of the Thames, isn't it? So and that would be, is that a combined event for 20s and 15s, or is it all Nacras that are going to be accumulating there? Yeah, that should be very cool. All right, Zach Silver is on board. Hello, Zach. Zach is full Utah. Now, you may know who have seen Zach in action from the previous What Went Wrong video. Yeah, Zach is sailing on the Rockport Reservoir in Utah and sending it. And we did meet, our paths did cross at Hilton Head earlier this year, and it was epic. No word of a lie. All right, Jochen says, I'm going to switch to a deck sweeper boom next season. Any advice on what not to do wrong to avoid destroying something? Yeah, so if you're saying you're switching to a deck sweeper boom, I'm assuming you're switching to a deck sweeper sail as well. So the sail that I've actually beautifully drawn here, this is the modern type of Formula 18 sail, which is called a deck sweeper, because the front part of the sail actually comes all the way down to the trampoline. Yeah, so first thing with not destroying something, yeah, obviously you need to do a nice job mounting the boom, but other than that, what could we say? Yeah, the tacking and jibing, how you get across the boat. What happens when you move to a deck sweeper sail is it makes it more difficult to move across the boat. That is, as you could probably imagine, that is inevitable, that that's going to happen. So what does that mean? It means sometimes you need to be a bit more strategic, a bit more organized when it comes to dagger board management. With all of these modern F-18s, which have really long dagger boards, we are what you might call tacking or jibing the dagger boards, which means that the windward dagger board, the dagger board on the side of the boat where we're sitting is going to be, so if we use this boat here, that dagger board is going to be up. So it's like this. And the leeward dagger board is going to be down, which means there needs to be a bit more of a routine when you've got a deck sweeper sail to make, you should have it anyway, whether you've got a deck sweeper or not. But the routine would be when the crew comes in off the trapeze, this dagger board goes down, they can then go across the boat, lift the other dagger board up, and you're set up for the other tack. Because if you fail to lift that dagger board before you go across the boat, then depending on the type of boat and systems that you've got, you might have to go back down to leeward, which on a boat like this isn't as quick as nipping down to leeward on a boat with a regular sail that you can get under. Yes. Having said that, on a lot of F-18s, they are rigged with some sort of automatic dagger board pulling system, but on the Nacra Evolution, that wasn't a feature, and that's where I'm basing all of my knowledge from in this arena. So this dagger board lifting feature is basically a line or a strap that goes through the dagger board, and that would like locate inside the hull, and then that line would come out round here and go across the boat and to the other side, which means if you wanted to pull that dagger board up, you just pull that line, dagger board goes up, happy days are here again. But much better just to do it when you come in, much easier. So crew goes round the front of the mast during the tacks, and unless it's really windy, the crew could go round the front of the mast on the jibes as well. It is much quicker for the crew just to stand up and go round the front. The only time they don't want to go round the front is if you're sailing in waves or with a lot of wind. Now, the thing to look out for when the crew is going round the front is not, this is for them, don't stand on the track of the self-tacking jib. That is something that can get broken. All right. And other than that, that's pretty much it. What I find the best is to grab hold of the diamond wires. That gives you something good to hold on to. Put a bit of grip on your front beam as well. So it's, because if it's just aluminium, could be quite slippery, could fall in. That being a what went wrong episode. Like to see that. Yeah, so the helm goes through this gap at the back. So your boom would be here, main sheet here. So you've got that gap to go through. And what I definitely find the easiest, especially seeing as that a lot of the time I'm wearing a helmet with a camera on it, easiest is to lead with the head. So stick your head through the hole first and then follow. Now, something that kind of got me when I first started sailing with a deck sweeper was, what about the Spinnaker sheets? Yeah, because I thought this was, I couldn't work out what the best thing to do was. So here's our boat. Deck sweeper sail in the middle, and the Spinnaker sheet would come from here and go under, sorry, yeah, it'd go under the sail like that. But the problem is that the bottom of the sail is where that sheet is going across. Now, on the more recent boats like the Evolution, they've actually put some extra blocks, very similar to this, some blocks like this on the trampoline in the middle for the sheet to go through so that it doesn't cut into the bottom of the mainsail. But on the earlier boats like the C2 that I was sailing beforehand, that didn't have anything. So I asked Danny and Costas, who are almost certainly the most decorated sailors in Greece, but very experienced catamaran sailors who have been racing at the top level of the Formula 18 class. I said, what do you do about this? He said, just forget about it. Just ignore the sail, use the Spinnaker sheet like you would do normally. So there we go. That's what we've been doing, and it kind of works. Yeah, so there we go. That is all I've got regarding the deck sweeper system on what you need to look out for. All right, nice. So RJ Fleet is on board. Hello, good to have you with us. I've got an 89 Hobie 16. I'm refurbishing the hulls. Is there an advantage to the single piece rudder mounts over the two piece? Yeah, so the single piece gudgeon, I think there probably is an advantage to it. I think you get a more secure fitting. So on the modern 16s, I say modern, probably since the mid 80s, I would think. Oh no, you've got an 89. So yeah, maybe they only changed in the 90s. So if this is the back of the hull, which side is which? This is the outside. And then this is the inside. So that comes down like this. There's the bung. Yeah, so these gudgeons where the rudder stocks attach, you've got a bit there, and then a bit there, and a bit there where the rudder pin goes in, and where the rudder stock can so it's actually not bad bit of scale here actually. So that goes in like that, rudder pin down through the lot. And what this style of gudgeon does is it makes it much easier to take that movement out of the rudder pin. I would guess with the older system, where if we have a matching hull, should have drawn a hull first, much easier. There's the top. We just have one bit there, one bit there. For a start, it's quite a lot of load. Is sailing the way that we sail the boats these days. When we sail, I'd like to think that these days we're sailing Hobie 16s much faster than they were being sailed back in the mid 80s. And what that does, sailing the boats faster, is puts much more load on the rudder blades, which of course is going to put much more load on the gudgeons, which are holding the rudder stocks on, which are holding the rudder blades in position. I think with this too, you're going to get more play, more load on those specific points of the hull. And yeah, it just for me lacks a bit of beef, a bit of reinforcement. Can we rely on this to be strong enough for the job? I'm not so sure. Can we take the play out? So when I'm talking about play, if we've got play in there, then the stock is going to be able to move around a bit in with the rudder pin, which just is going to make the boat feel horrible when sailing at speed. So there's the long answer. Short answer would be, Are you expecting to be sailing in a strong wind? If you're only sailing in light winds recreationally, like using your boat for going fishing, that would be the ultimate example, then this is absolutely fine. If you're not expecting to be pushing the boat very hard, this is absolutely fine. But if you're looking at sending it in 25 knots of wind every day of the week, this is better. But having said that, if I had an older boat with this system, would I change it to this system? I'm not sure, because it would involve drilling holes in the boat. You'd need to get a plate on the inside of the hull, which might mean putting some sort of access into the hull to be able to get a plate onto the inside. So, and then if this isn't perfectly straight, it's going to feel awful anyway. So I'd probably stick with how it is. I think that is the conclusion that I've just told myself. Yes, stick to how it is. There we go. All right. So just looking down. All right. Jesse is on board. Hi, Jesse. How you doing? Jesse in New York. Thanks for the time and info over the year. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in, because if it wasn't for you guys watching the videos, I'd have stopped making the videos, I should think. And I quite enjoy making the videos. Next year, I'm going to take the videos to a whole new level. Oh, yes. And looking forward to that very much indeed. All right, I have got another... all right. Oh, Stephen's on board. Hi, Stephen. Another Stephen. Nice to have you with us. This is Stephen, who also, I think, is this Stephen who also sails at Grafton Water on a Spitfire, perhaps a Nacra 20? If you could let us know, Stephen, that'd be good. But in the meantime, we've got Jim in Pittsburgh with in the USA with a question regarding his Hobie Pearl. For those of you who don't know the Hobie Pearl, perhaps I'll even make a, if you weren't here at the start, I'm making a new series of short videos, basically like information videos about different types of catamaran. Kind of like, a bit like the cat knowledge chat that I did the German boat show last year, which I then made the video of, but in one boat at a time kind of sections. So first one of those will be on Sunday at the usual time. But I might do one about the Hobie Pearl, because I think it is one of those boats that isn't so widely known about. It's basically like a Hobie Tiger, except the dagger boards have been replaced for spring-loaded center boards like we have on the Hobie, the old Hobie 17s. And as standard, it comes with a furling spinnaker and optional bench seats like on a Hobie 18. So what Jim says, this is a test of my eyesight, actually. My other screen is quite far away. I'm converting my Hobie Pearl from a furling spinnaker to a spinnaker chute system. Very good. I've purchased a 21 square meter spinnaker to use. All right, very nice. My mast has a tang mounted about 1 meter from the top for the top Jenica furler to attach to. Your video recommends a line and strop to look after the mast rotation. Okay, so this is the first part of the question. And yes, so what we're talking about, let's what we're going to have, we'll use this one, and we need a mast. Okay, so what Jim has got on his boat at the moment is he's just got a single tang up here. So down here would be where all the rigging attaches, like that. So he's got this one tang on the mast, which is where his rolling spinnaker was attached to. And there would be the spinnaker pole. All right, so the problem with just having one tang, if we look at the mast from the top, there's the track for the sail. So that's the back of the mast. The track would, yeah, it's not the best track I've ever drawn. Never mind. And then he's got one tang which sticks out there where his rolling spinnaker was attached. Now, the problem is, when we're flying the spinnaker, we'll be sailing along and the mast will be rotated. So this tang, if we're sailing on this tack, starboard tack, this tang would be very much on this side of the mast because it's rotated. Can everybody picture that? So the mast will have rotated, tang on this side, but the spinnaker is pulling forwards and even to the other side. So yeah, it's always interesting trying to see how this can be visualized. So the mast's actually going to be a little bit off the boat here just for practical reasons. So the mast will be rotated, which means the tang, if the tang was on the front, oh, the mast rotates that way, of course, which means the tang is up here. Yeah, are we getting this? All right, which means the load from the spinnaker. So spinnaker is flying out here, 21 square meters, good size. So the load from the spinnaker is actually pulling pretty hard this way, which is going to pull the mast back round to straight. And if we're sailing in any amount of wind, like anything above 15 knots, let's say, any amount of wind where we can lift the hull, then this top part of the mast is completely unsupported. And what that could result in is snapping the top of the mast off, which we certainly would not be wanting to do. So what do we need to do to stop this? Let's call it the mast rotation problem. What we have to do is we have to have something going round the mast. That's a very small picture, but something that goes round the mast like this, lower down than the tang. So what we would have is a line with a block. A line goes through that, a strop, or sometimes you have like on the Tornadoes, we have like a metal rail, that stainless steel rail that goes round. So that line goes through there, block on there, and then that block has the spinnaker halyard. So how can we do this? Two ways of doing this. One way is if we see the side of the mast, we drill 2 holes, not actually into the body of the mast, but into the track, so that those holes only go into the track. So they're not actually penetrating what should be the airtight part. They're just going into the track. And then what we do is we pass a good rope, some coated Dyneema, probably 4mm, so that we have the knot in that end. It goes into the track, out. The reason it's done like that is because we don't want a knot inside the mast track, because the sail will get stuck there every time. All right, so then that goes round the mast reasonably tight, and then to do exactly the same thing on the other side. That is the easiest way to do it. I certainly wouldn't recommend getting a stainless steel hoop to go around the mast, because to be able to find one is going to be difficult, and then it's unnecessary. Whereas this strop, so the rope passes inside the strop, so the rope from this tang comes down inside the strop, and then you have a pulley just underneath where the Spinnaker halyard goes round. There we go. All right, we've got another part to Jim's question, which I'll come on to in a jiffy. Just going back into the live chat. All right, Johnny Hughes is on board. Happy holidays from Texas. Yeah, nice one, Johnny. I am missing Texas a little bit. It has been chilly here in Greece, and in Texas, it was certainly not chilly at all. But what a great time that was in Corpus Christi. Yeah, looking forward to heading back at some point. By the way, at this time of year, it's when I'm filling my calendar with stuff. So if you happen to be hosting an event, I'd like to say somewhere nice. If you're hosting an event somewhere nice and you'd like me to come and help you to promote the event, to participate in the event, make videos from the event and what have you, get in touch sooner rather than later, because if you leave it too late, then the calendar gets filled up and then I can't come and I'll be sad. We'll both be sad together. Yeah. Okay. All right. So GeoBro says, oh, this is a good question. What was your first catamaran? I'm hopefully going to buy a cat in 2026. Do you have any suggestions, tips on buying one? Yeah. My first catamaran was a Dart 18. This Dart 18, because my sailing club in the UK is Felixstowe Ferry, which is just up the coast from where you are. And I'd been crewing on a few Dart 18s for less than a year, I think. So I'd learnt to trapeze, really liked it, had a few goes at steering, really liked it. And then a Dart 18 appeared for sale on the sailing club notice board for £400 with a trailer. So I had a part-time job at the time. So, and I begged family members for money and bought the boat. And it was from buying the boat, from having my own boat, which has put me where I am now, because as soon as I got hold of that boat, no word of an exaggeration, I sailed it every day of the year, apart from days where it just was not possible. Like Christmas was the worst day of the year because I wasn't allowed to go sailing, or if there was absolutely zero wind, because where I was sailing was very tidal. So there was no way to go out sailing if there was no wind at all. What would I suggest when looking for your first cat? I think the Dart 18 is a really good choice. And in the UK, there are still loads of Dart 18s around. And the reason why the Dart 18 is a good choice is because it is one of the few boats that really does single-handed evenly with double-handed. So if you're going to do club racing, you can race a Dart 18 single-handed against people who are racing double-handed, and it's the most even you'll get out of any type of catamaran. Yeah. And there'll be plenty of Dart 18s around as well. They are more fragile than most boats. So I think by like if it's going to be your first boat, then it's really good training for your first catamaran to be fragile, because it teaches you how to look after the boat, and like even when you're wheeling it around from the boat park to the water, things like that, how you're behaving with the boat, how you're looking after the boat. And that means if later on you switch to a different type of boat, like pretty much anything these days is not as fragile as a Dart 18, like a Formula 18 or a Tornado or a Hobie, any Hobie, much stronger than the Dart. But this isn't to put anybody off the Dart 18. I think it's absolutely great boat, and it's still got the active racing fleet in Northern Europe and in South Africa as well, I believe. East London Yacht Club. Hello. Yeah, so I would say that's a good choice, but you might just be limited to what is up for sale at the right price. That is the thing. But try to make sure that when you buy a boat, it includes a method to get it into the water, because a launching trolley can cost, if you found a really inexpensive boat but it hasn't got a trolley, the trolley could be almost as much as the boat if you were to buy a new one. There we go. Hope that is helpful. All right, Stephen. Yes, Stephen is at Grapham. He sailed a Carbon 20 twice last month. It's an awesome boat. Yes, I would agree. Plus a Nacra, one of the older Nacra 17s, which was also a great boat to sail. Okay, we've got Jim H80. Should I move? Oh, this is Jim in Pittsburgh. All right, Jim. Nice. Should I move the tang to the top of the mast to keep the strop at a meter from the top? Yeah, that's a good question. How high up should this be? What I would do is put this strop at exactly the same place where it is on a Hobie Tiger or any Formula 18, because the dimensions of your pearl will be exactly the same as a Formula 18. So if you've got access to a Formula 18 with the mast down, that would be perfect. If you don't, then just let me know and I do have access to some Hobie Tiger masts which are down, and I could take a measurement for how far that strop needs to be from the top of the mast. Then basically the tang where the load is going to go just needs to be, doesn't need to be particularly far from the strop, just needs to be, what would that be, like 15 centimeters minimum, I would say, from the strop. So I would leave the tang where it is at the moment, but maybe it will be necessary to move some things around. All right. Okay. Jim says, please do. All right. I will have a look. Okay. All right. Captain Shelby's on board. That is Helga, I believe, who was from the video where we had some thrills and spills. It was in Vasiliki Bay, and ended up picking up Mr. Goose with his windsurfing board. Yeah, if you haven't seen that video, you have missed a treat. Great to have you on board there, Captain Shelby. All right, so continuing, I've got the second part of Jim's question. So it's good that you're here, Jim, because you'll actually hear the answer to this question. Should I go with a separate tack line or a single line system? The Pearl has the jib track mounted on the front beam, so I have to mount the hardware around that. I would go, because the Pearl is very much double-handed boat, or yeah, I would say I would go with the separate tack line, because it really does away with the kind of the difficulties of making a one-line system, like we were talking with about Marcus's FX1 last week. The one-line system is really nice, but with the Hobie track, it also depends a bit on where does your Spinnaker halyard finish? Where's the cleat for your Spinnaker halyard? If it's on the mast, then I would almost certainly go for a two-line system. So the halyard comes to the mast and then the tack line comes to the front beam. That is what I would do. All right. I think on that note, we're going to call it a day. So thanks very much for tuning in. And thanks everybody for your continued support of Joyrider TV. You guys have been absolutely amazing in keeping this ship afloat this year. I'm not going to be there's not going to be a Q&A next week or the week after that, I'm afraid. So the week after that, which I believe will be sometime in January, I'll be back with the next Q&A. So let's get storing up some questions for that one, and have a great Christmas and great weekend. And if you're going sailing, keep it safe. And if you're not going sailing, you can watch some videos. Thank you very much. And sign up for the Joyrider Classroom series, either through channel memberships or through Patreon, or you could just buy the course and then it's yours. Updates every week.